Welcome back to another tutorial on using SketchUp for schools. Today we're going to focus on how to create a personalized keychain that can be later 3D printed. The first thing you're going to want to do is log into your SketchUp for schools and then make sure you give your file a title. Once you have that file titled, we're going to go ahead and start by creating the basic shape of our keychain. Notice that we do have our guy in the middle of our screen and he's going to be there for a reference in size. Once we get going with this and we start the basic shapes, we can then go ahead and delete him. So we're going to start with a top-down approach. So we're going to go over to our view menu and we're going to select the top of the house. We can go ahead and zoom in a little bit, and once we do, we're going to create a rectangle that is 3 inches in width by 1 inch in depth. So we're going to go ahead and find that rectangle tool. We're going to click on the origin and drag that out. Make sure you don't click because that's going to lock that rectangle in place. We want to go ahead and actually type in those dimensions. So we're going to add a 3-inch width dimension by a 1-inch depth. Once you select enter, you'll notice that you've created that rectangular prism. Go ahead and use the selection tool to put your rectangle tool down, and from there we can click on our guy and go ahead and delete. From there we're going to want to zoom in a little bit so that we can get a better view of what that rectangle looks like. Now that we have that, we need to add a little height. So we're going to go to that bottom right house and we're going to go ahead and select our push-pull tool and click and drag that up. We're going to give this a height of 1/4 inch. So we can go ahead and add our 0.25, go ahead and hit enter and lock it into place. Once it's locked into place, we're going to go and take a look at the top view again and we're going to create an offset. So we're going to create a little rim here or outside edge where it's going to be recessed in the middle so we can place our name. In order to do that, we're going to go back to the push-pull, but we're going to select offset. Once you select offset, go ahead and click on that top line and drag down. And before clicking, we're going to go ahead and give this a dimension of 0.125. Once we go ahead and select enter, you're going to notice that we now have 2 profiles to work with, the outside and the middle of that rectangle. From here, we're going to go ahead and use the selection tool and we're going to select the bottom right house again. Now we're going to go ahead and take this center and we're going to go ahead and pull that down so that we have that recess in the middle. Go back to the push-pull, select your push-pull and click on the middle. Notice if we go up, we can add material, but if we go down, it's going to remove that material. We're going to go ahead and pull that down 0.1 inches. Once you are done, we're going to go back to the selection tool. Now we're ready to go ahead and add our name in the middle, but we need to first add a little loop at the top where we can go ahead and create our name. So I'm going to select this bottom left corner of the house. That's going to give me a nice view of this edge here. So working off of this edge or this face, we're going to create an arc and then we're going to go ahead and pull that up. So let's go ahead and find our 2-point arc. And from your 2-point arc, we're going to want to click right on the origin and we're going to go to that back corner. We're going to go ahead and move that arc out and we want that to be a 1/2 inch. So you can simply go ahead and type in 0.5, and once you type in your 0.5, go ahead and hit enter and now you have a little arc. While we're here, let's go back to our push-pull. We're going to go ahead and grab that arc and we're going to go until our mouse is even with our face. Once you see on edge or endpoint, you can go ahead and select, and that's going to guarantee that those 2 faces are equal height. Now we're going to go back to our top view, and what we want to create here is a little hole in the middle that we can attach our keychain to. So we're going to create some construction lines here. We're going to go to our line tool and we're going to find the midpoint of that line. Once you find the midpoint, go ahead and draw a line to the left, making sure you stay on that red axis. Once you get to the endpoint, go ahead and click, and now you've created a center line. Notice that if we go to that center line, you will find a midpoint once we go and draw our circle. So we're going to go ahead and use our circle tool, and we're going to find that midpoint. And once we do, we can go ahead and click, and we're going to drag that out until we see an 1/8 inch radius. Once you have that 1/8 inch radius, go ahead and hit enter. Once that's locked into place, we can go back and put down our tool, and using the eraser tool, we're going to go ahead and delete those remaining lines. Now we're going to go back to that bottom left corner of our house. We're going to grab the push-pull one more time, and we're going to click on that circle. And remember, if we go up, we add, but we're going to go down, and we're going to go down 0.25 inches. Once you go down 1/4 of an inch, what you're going to notice is if we rotate our shape around, that hole should be through the entire shape. Now we're ready to add a little bit of text to our actual keychain. Now, one of the most important things that we're going to have to keep in mind when adding our text is that we place it what we call on face. We want it to be basically flush with this top face, and we want it to be resting on that inset that we created. So in order to do this, we're going to go ahead and select our polygon tool. And from our polygon tool, we're going to select 3D text. Once you select 3D text, you'll have a pop-up window. Go ahead and type your last name in that window, and make sure that your height is set to 1/2 inch and your text extrusion is set to 0.1 or 1/10 of an inch. Go ahead and select OK, and once you do that, you will notice that your name will pop up on the screen. Now, when placing this, we're going to want to make sure that that's on face, and you're going to notice right now that it's kind of hovering above the keychain. We're going to want to go ahead and select a front view for this, and then we're going to want to rotate that down slightly. And from there, you're going to notice that we should be able to get that name to sit on face. Now, if you can't, you might need to zoom in a little bit. And once you see that on face, go ahead and simply left click on your mouse. Now we can go ahead and check by looking at the right and left, and you're going to notice that right now it should be flush with your keychain. One of the things you will notice is that my name takes up a little bit more of the keychain, and that's okay because we can use a scale tool to bring this in. So under the move tool, down at the bottom, you'll find scale. Once you select scale, you'll notice that there's a yellow box that will highlight around your name. Grab that upper right corner and left click, and we're going to drag that in until we get it to the correct size. Once you get it to the size you would like, unclick, and now we need to move my text. So we're going to go back to that scale tool and select move, and from here we can click anywhere on our name, and that's going to allow us to move our name. I'm going to move mine over, just kind of center it in the middle, and I'm going to left click to place it. Now if we take a look at our isometric view, you're going to notice that we have the name right in the middle, and that's going right around and inside that keychain. The last step we need to do is add a little bit of color. Now to make this a little bit easier, I'm going to go ahead and grab my eraser tool, and I'm going to go ahead and delete this top line here. We want to stay away from deleting this side edge because that will hollow out your keychain. So make sure you stay away from erasing that line on the side, but you can get rid of the one that's on the top. Now that we're ready to go, we're going to go ahead and triple click on my shape, and I'm going to go ahead and grab the paint bucket, and from here, I'm going to go ahead and select one of my colors. Now if you want a larger color palette, you want to make sure that when you get into your color palette, you select Browse and then identify the colors that you want. I'm going to select a blue, and I'm going to go ahead and color my keychain blue. Notice that the name did not change. So we're going to go ahead and use the selection tool to select just the name this time. And now we can select a different color, and we can go ahead and click on that to give it a different color than the actual keychain. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at what this looks like from an isometric view. We could even go ahead and rotate that around a little bit. And now your keychain is simply ready to be exported to an STL file for 3D printing.